This morning we're going to finish our message on toxic relationships. Toxic relationships. We are here in the book of Judges reading about Samson. As we talked about on last Sunday, he had superhuman strength that was tied to his hair because God anointed him from birth as a Nazarite. So his entire life was to be dedicated to God. And he was to begin freeing Israel from the oppression of Palestine. We noted on last week that our entire lives should be a tribute to God too, should be dedicated to God. The relationships that we have in life should do two things. The relationships that we have with people should enhance our lives. And the relationships that we have with people should enhance our relationship with God. Our friendships should draw us closer to God, should demonstrate God's love. Our friendship should help us understand Christ better, and our friends should be able to see us demonstrating Christ's love through the way that we treat them and those around us. As we talked about this, we discovered that relationships for Samson was a problem because he loved toxic women. We talked about his marriage was to a toxic woman. She tried to get him to lose a bet against his people. He stayed laying up with prostitutes. We know those are toxic. That's not a good relationship. And ultimately, he fell in love with Delilah, who ultimately sold him out for money. So she sold him out for about $35,000 in our funds. In looking at that, we said that we too have strength and power through our relationship with Christ. And however, just like Samson, we allow toxic people to come in and separate us from our bond with Christ. We allow toxic people to come in and disrupt our purpose, disrupt our blessings, disrupt our mental health, our self-esteem, how we feel about ourselves. We let toxic people mess things up in a big way. We said it's interesting that Delilah's name means to bring low. And that's exactly what she did to Samson. She brought him low and caused him to be captured. And toxic relationships are going to do the same thing to you. They're going to bring you low and cause you to compromise your healthy relationships with other people. On last Sunday, we looked at the toxic traits at play between Samson and Delilah's relationship. And we looked at them to help us see what was going on to decide if the relationships that we have with people are toxic. One thing we pointed out last week that is a toxic trait is that she cared about herself only. We noted that a toxic person cares more about what they can get out of a situation than they care about what getting will do to you. They're going to harm you to get to what it is they want. We also pointed out that she used his feelings for her against him. She used his love to get what she wanted. We said a lot of you are in relationships that are full of love manipulation. They know your feelings for them. The people know how you feel about them. And so they use that as leverage to get what they want out of you. You want to resist. But they know that if they stroke your ego just the right way, they can get what they want. We also pointed out in their relationship that a toxic trait is that you're going to be pressured to prove your love. Lots of people in toxic relationships have the other person demanding that they prove their love for them. However, you don't have to prove your love to anyone. They're just using this as a trait to use you, and they'll have you doing all kind of crazy stuff, trying to prove your love to them. If you love me, then you would do this. You should prove your love to me by giving me this. If you love someone, you wouldn't want to see them go without. Some of y'all have heard those lines. Some of y'all have used those lines. And lastly, we said, as a toxic trait, she vexed him. She caused him to have to choose between her or his covenant with God. We said that in a toxic relationship, a lot of relationships, people will pressure you to please them versus keeping your relationship with God intact. They're going to ask you to do things that you don't feel good about doing, that go against your consciousness in order to prove your love to them. So that brings us to this Sunday. As we looked at those toxic traits between Delilah and Samson's relationship, I want to point out very quickly 10 other toxic traits to look out for in people and in the relationships that you're in, as well as look out for in yourself to make sure that you are not using some of these traits. One of the traits I want to lift up is a toxic trait that I want to lift up is intensity. Intensity. A person is overly intense about everything. If you're in a relationship where everything is an emergency, everything that you engage in is on level 10, then you're in a toxic relationship. They have over-the-top feelings. That means that everything is doom and gloom. Every little mistake becomes, oh Lord, I'm in trouble now. Look what you've done. Look how you made things. They also get intense to the point that they become demanding on your life. Everything has to be done right now and their way. That's an intense person. That's an intense relationship. That's toxic. They're even intense to the point of being too needy. They need you to fulfill them, but you can't. They stay on you. They pressure you, trying to make you please them, and they won't let up. You know you're in that kind of relationship because every time they walk out the room, you feel relief. You be like, dog, talking to you is tiring. It takes a lot of energy to deal with an intense person. They rack your nerves, and you just sometimes just be praying, saying, Lord, I'll be glad when they leave, or get off the phone, or go in the other room, so that the temperature and the level of the room will come down, because they are intense about everything. Drama queens and kings. Another toxic trait that we want to look out for is possessiveness. That is, a person is jealous over you to the point of control. Sometimes you feel like that's love, but that's not love. That's jealousy, that's possessiveness. They're trying to use that heaviness to control you. They become possessive of your time, they become possessive of your gifts, and they become possessive of your blessings. They try to take everything of yours and make it theirs, and they don't want you to deal with no one else. You can tell this thing because if you can be a giving person, but a possessive person is okay with you being a giving person as long as they're the one receiving. The minute you give to someone else, it's going to become a problem. A possessive person doesn't mind you being a considerate person as long as they're the only one you're considerate of. If you show consideration to someone else, they get mad about it. and say, why are you dealing with them? Why are you being nice to them? You say, well, I was just being considerate. You don't need to be considerate of nobody but me. You can have a helpful nature, but a possessive person is only going to care about you being helpful as long as you're helping them. But if you help anyone else, they're going to be like your little helpful behind needs to sit down somewhere and get all out of folks' face. And that's not being protective, they're being possessive. A lot of times, the very traits that attracted someone to you are the things that they become possessive about once they get you. You're thinking to yourself, well, you used to tell me you liked how loving I was, you liked how caring I was, you liked how supportive I was. And they said, well, yeah, I liked them because I wanted them all to myself. I don't need you sharing that with other people. And that possessiveness is a toxic trait. Another toxic trait that we have to look out for is a person that is an isolationist. An isolationist, that's a person that tries to keep you away from family, friends, and other people that are close to you. They don't want you being friends with nobody but them. Not only that, you see them because they usually only want you interacting with their friends, and you can't even talk to them unless you're in their presence. If you try to leave and go somewhere, they want to, where you going? Who you trying to hang out with? Who you on the phone with? Get off that phone. It's all because, not out of love, but it's because they're trying to isolate you and keep you all to themselves. And in reality, that's a sort of possessiveness. And also that is a point of control. They're trying to control you, not love you. The next toxic trait we want to lift up is belittling. Belittling. A person who does or says things that make you feel bad about yourself is a belittling person. And that's a toxic trait. These people are hard to be around because every time you have something positive happen in your life, they're going to find a way to belittle it. Every time you start feeling good about yourself, they're going to find a way to belittle that thing that you're feeling good about. They can be direct about it or they can be indirect. If they're being direct about it, they'll say stuff like, you know you fat, right? I don't see why you put that on, because you look horrible in it. That's a belittling person. They can be indirect in the relationship and still be belittling you. They'll say something like, do you really think you have what it takes for that? They try to make it sound like they have your best interest in heart, but really they throwing shade, talking about you on the slide. They say things to you like, you know, I ordinarily wouldn't be with someone look like you, but I decided to try something different. These are the kind of statements and things that they say, but they're really belittling you, trying to tear you down to make you think that, Lord, let me hang on to them, because if I let go of them, nobody else is going to want me. Who else is going to, girl, you better be glad I love you with them 4 kids. Who else wants somebody with 4 kids? And they're saying those things to tear you down and to make you self-conscious about yourself. Those are belittling things. That's a belittling trait, and it's toxic. And if you keep it in your life, it's going to start wearing on your self-image about yourself. It's going to continue pulling you down and affecting your mental health. Another toxic trait that we have to watch out for is guilting. We call it gaslighting. Guilty. A person tries to make you feel responsible for their actions, or they try and make you feel like it's your responsibility to make them happy. Delilah was trying that with Samson. She was like, don't you want to make me happy? I thought you said that you love me. How can you say you love me when you won't tell me the source of your strength? They say these things to them. you get in trouble with them and they do something wrong, and then they try to make you feel guilty for what they did. See, if you hadn't been running off to that job and working all them hours, I wouldn't have cheated on you. If you hadn't been paying more attention to me in the relationship, then I wouldn't have had to go outside the relationship to find somebody to make me happy. But all the while, whether you was there or not, they was going to do what it was that they were going to do. You should be the one who makes me happy. I would be happy with myself if you catered to me more. I would be happy with myself if you gave me more things. I would be happy with myself if you stayed and you lifted me up more, and you talked to me more, and you worship the ground that I walk on, knowing that they have to be happy with themselves. That there's nothing that you can do to make them happy. If they aren't happy with themselves, yet they're going to try to make you feel guilty for their state of mind. Another toxic trait is deflecting responsibility. That is a person that repeatedly makes excuses for their unhealthy and toxic behavior. You made me act the way that I'm acting. See, you looked at me wrong. And that's why I had to go off on you. I didn't like the way you walked into the room. And so I had to let you have it. I did what I did because they made me do it. Not because I don't have self-control. All these are symptoms of someone who is trying to deflect responsibility for their actions. Somebody who's trying to make everything else someone else's fault. It's hard to talk to those kind of people because you try to have a conversation with them and you try to point out the things that are causing difficulty in your relationship, and the next thing you know, the whole thing is your fault. Or the fault of those around them. Well, you know, my mother didn't raise me, or you know, my daddy wasn't in my life, or you know, I don't really know how to love. But instead of working to change and overcome these things, they're making excuses for how they are and challenging you to accept them as they are, even if it's bringing you down. That's toxic. The next toxic trait that we have to watch out for is a person that is a sabotage person. That's a person that purposely ruins your reputation, your achievements, or your success. They're always working to pull you down. They can do it directly by stabbing you in the back. Every time you look around, they're doing something to undermine what it is you're trying to do. They know you have a job opportunity and you need a ride to the interview, and they say, "Oh, I'll take you to the interview," and then they 20 minutes late. Yeah. Somebody they had car trouble. And really, they were sitting at the house watching the clock, saying, "Yeah, I'm gonna wait a little bit longer to make sure that they're late for that interview." Or they can do it indirectly by trying to downplay or disregard your accomplishments. You say, "Hey, I'm graduating today. Aren't you proud of me? Won't you come to my graduation?" "Well, I would, but I got to do something for my mama that day." Could you come see them give me this award at work? "Well, you know, I don't have that much vacation time on my job. And I can't make it." These people, they don't want to support you in your success or your achievements. They want to sabotage your self-esteem by pulling you down, by not supporting you, by not looking out for you, and by not being there for you. And they're doing it on purpose, not on accident. Now you have to watch out because they're going to make it look like it's not on purpose, but really it is. If they're more times than not pulling you down, it's on purpose. The next person we have to watch out for is a person with volatility. That's a person that blows up over anything to the point that you feel scared or intimidated or confused by their reaction and them. That's volatility. Those are the types of people that you don't want to talk to because they might blow up. You don't want to say anything to them. You see them doing something that's getting under your skin and you can't bring it up because you're worried they're going to fly off the handle. I grew up and lived with one of these folks. My little brother, the whole house be on pins and needles, mumbling to each other. Well, he probably shouldn't do that. You tell him. I ain't telling him. You know how he is. You know he's going to blow up on you. And you don't know, so we just say, well, we'll just deal with it, because nobody wants to be the one to set him off. You know those people, you try to tell them something for their own good, and the next thing you know, they're yelling at you and screaming and shouting and going out the room, and then you don't tell them that something happens, and they be like, well, why didn't you tell me? Like, shoot, I didn't want that mess. I wasn't going to tell you. I was going to let you figure it out for yourself because I didn't want to hear your mouth. So I didn't want you taking it out on me. And every little thing sets them off. The next person we want to look out for as a toxic trait is a betrayer. A betrayer, that's a person that is intentionally disloyal or acts in purposefully dishonest ways. That was like Delilah. She was purposely disloyal. I had a best friend growing up that I used to think it was other people doing me wrong. And then I found out that I was hanging out with the very person who was doing me wrong. He was always throwing me under the bus or trying to sell me out to get ahead. And you have friends and family and people in your life sometimes that are always trying to throw you under the bus, or they're trying to sell you out or push you down to get ahead. That is a betrayed type person. And that's a dangerous person, because every time God is trying to elevate you, every time God is trying to move you to the next level, you're dragging someone along that's simply working in the background, tearing you down. And then he's like, Lord, why can't I get ahead? And the Lord's telling you, well, I keep trying to move you ahead, but you keep dragging that toxic person along with you who's interfering with the very thing that I'm trying to do for you. And so you can have to learn how to love these folks from afar. You got to learn how to wave at them in the distance and keep on moving. You don't have to allow them in your life to continue to tear you down. And the last person that we want to look out for in toxic relationships is an avoider. And that's a person that refuses to communicate or deal with conflict situations. That's a person who doesn't want to sit in the mess that they created. But they don't want to talk about the situations that they put you in. They don't want to talk about the way that their actions disrupted your life. You can't sit down and talk with them to work things out because they always avoid the conversation. You know that person, they do something wrong and they disappear. And you say, I wonder why this went wrong in my life. I wonder why this happened. And then you realize, I noticed I ain't seen so-and-so in a long time. Or they do you wrong, and you know they did you wrong, and you're waiting to see them so you can talk to them about it and ask them what they were doing and why they did it, and they go ghost on you. And they hang out and they wait and they stay away long enough, hoping that you forget that you're supposed to be mad at them, and then they pop back up like nothing ever happened. They show up talking to you like they didn't do you wrong or stab you in the back or put you in that situation, and they want to charm it up and be happy like nothing ever happened. Actually, those type of people are trying to delay the inevitable. They're avoiding their toxicity by not confronting it, and they want to delay you until the point that you let it go so that they can do what they want to do. A lot of times they know that they're going to make you mad, so they do it anyway, and then they just stay away till you get over it. And then every now and then they call you to test the water. And if you get ready to fuss at them, they get off the phone real quick. And be like, nah, it ain't time to talk to them yet. I'll try them again next week or next month. And they keep tasting the waters until that point that you just say, forget it. And then they start coming back around again. All these traits are toxic. And they're toxic because they affect our mental health. They affect our ability to have a healthy relationship with them or someone else. They affect our ability to have healthy relationships with people that God wants in your life. Because Jesus calls us to have healthy relationships with each other. He calls us to have healthy relationships with Him. And He demonstrates that through His love for you. If you want to pattern a healthy relationship, then pattern your relationships after Christ. Pattern your relationships after the way that He treats you, and the way that he talked to others and dealt with those in His Word. Christ loved you before you loved yourself. God forgives you even when you have trouble forgiving yourself. He's with you when you're up. He's there for you when you're down. He never leaves you in any situation alone. Even the bad ones, Christ is always there right by your side, hanging on. He might be disappointed in your actions. He might be disgusted by some of the sins that you do, but He never stops loving you. He never stops uplifting you. Even though you are being toxic to Him, He sees through your toxic nature and loves you anyhow. He loves you so much that He died for you, yet He calls you to live for Him. That's real love. If the relationship that you're having in your life isn't lifting you up, if the relationship that you're having in your life isn't demonstrating love through the actions and the way that they treat you, if the persons and the relationships you have in your life aren't a bright spot, that they aren't a shining light and a breath of fresh air to be around, then they might be toxic and you might want to turn them loose. Yes, we're going to have disagreements. Yes, we're going to have problems. Yes, we're not always going to get along, but we cannot get along. We can have issues without being toxic to one another, or not allowing a toxic person to tear you down. If any relationship you have is causing you to compromise yourself, or compromise your love with Christ, if any relationship you have is holding you back from being the best you, then it's time to let it go. It's time to cut these toxic relationships loose. Amen.